Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm Leanne McAdoo here, joined by Owen Schroyer. And this hour, we are going to be speaking with Paul Craig Roberts. He's got a great article out right now. What is the Obama regime up to? Frankly, I think this is a question that all of us are asking right now. What the heck is going on? Paul Craig Roberts, of course, is an American economist and a columnist for Creators Syndicate, and he served as an assistant secretary of the Treasury in the Reagan administration, earning fame as, of course, as the co-founder of Reaganomics. His most recent book is How America Was Lost. You can find all of that as well as this article at paulcraigroberts.org. Paul Craig Roberts, thank you so much for joining the show today. I think we are all really anticipating the information that you're going to be bringing to us. What the heck is going on with the Obama regime?
Well, that's what I asked. They've announced these sanctions that really aren't sanctions. It's just the expulsion of diplomats because no other country is required to do the same. When they made this announcement, the Department of Homeland Security released a report in a way that you might think this report supports the case that Obama has made against Russia. But if you look at the report, you notice two things. One is it is merely a report about the kinds of tools and infrastructure that the Russian government has that could be used to bring a cyber attack to the United States, either to private companies or to some public parts of the government. It provides no evidence whatsoever that these tools were actually used. It's just a description of what they may be. And then the other interesting thing about this is at the very top of the report, there is a disclaimer. Let's see if I can read
I have it here. It says, you have it in this article. It says, disclaimer, this report is provided as is for informational purposes only. The Department of Homeland Security does not provide any warranties of any kind regarding any information contained within. But you should just go ahead and take it on the word, and we're going to issue these sanctions and kick out the Russian diplomats.
Well, you see what the disclaimer does. It says that we really can't even verify that our description of their tools and infrastructure is correct. So we have no evidence that the alleged infrastructure was used for the purposes that Obama says. And then we have a disclaimer that the report on the nature of the infrastructure and tools cannot be warranted, that they don't really that they stand behind this.
Wow. And that is incredible, because here we're thinking that we are going to be getting this bombshell information once they finally decide to brief the House Intelligence Committee. Even Donald Trump is saying, I think it's time everyone wants to move on to bigger and better things, but I'll wait and find out what they know about the Russians. He's even, trying to be patient. But here you're saying they still have not provided any actual hardcore evidence. In the last minute addition to the NDAA there with this countering foreign propaganda, is this how they're going to do it? Just making up fake news and just telling America they need to be very, very, very afraid of the Russians? That's
exactly all it amounts to. In my column, I have a link to the report so people can look at them themselves. I'm sure I have it correct. So what really is going on? See, something is going on under the scene, behind the scenes, maybe something that's much more serious. On the surface, we can conclude that, well, what Obama is trying to do is to box Trump in so that he can't restore relations with Russia. We can see that that's the obvious conclusion to come from all of this. But that itself doesn't seem all that believable, because Trump can rescind the sanctions in 21 days when he's inaugurated. And so we should perhaps consider that there is more going on than meets the eye. Because one of the main uses of propaganda, and especially about this propaganda of a Russian cyber threat, it could be to prepare the American and European populations for an incident. It could be a real serious incident. It would have to be serious in order to succeed in making it impossible for Trump to restore normal relations between the United States and Russia. And so what could be the nature of this? Well, we don't know, but we do know that the CIA has morphed into being a deep state that uses disinformation, propaganda, to align decisions of Congress, executive branch, and foreign governments with their own secret behind-the-scenes agendas.
Have you ever seen a disclaimer like this before?
No, never seen. I've never seen a report issued by an intelligence agency that supposedly backs up hostile, provocative acts of the government against another power have a disclaimer.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, just take our word for it. We're going to World War III.
Yeah,
now,
well,
speaking of, just kind of what we're seeing with this outgoing administration, what was the transition like from Carter, say? Was he trying to muck up the place as much as humanly possible for the incoming administration?
No, of course not. Carter was a gentleman. He was a very fine kind of person. No, we had no trouble from.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like this is kind of unprecedented from a petulant child, kind of scorched earth policy, if you will. So, when we were in the midst of the Cold War, did anything like this ever happen? Are we seeing kind of Cold War deja vu?
Well, I couldn't say how many times we were given false information about the Soviet threat, because to have a threat is very valuable to the military security complex. They get a lot of budget out of that. They get a lot of power out of it. So they need a threat. And, Eisenhower warned us of that, 60 years ago. So they need a threat. And, of course, they need a Russian threat. The Muslim threat's not a big enough threat to justify the kinds of military security budgets we have. But to get back to this question of what is really going on here, why... It doesn't make any sense for Obama to make a fool of himself like this. And so that's why I wonder, I mean, I can't say that this is the case, but I wonder if all of this isn't propaganda to get us ready for some kind of incident that can be used to prevent Trump restoring relations. It would have to be a serious thing. And if that's the case, it could catch the Russians off guard, because you saw what Putin's response was. It was very low-key. In fact, he used it to embarrass Obama and say he wasn't going to expel anybody. And in fact, all the American kids were invited to the Russian Christmas parties. So if I was the Russian government, I would be wondering about this, because there may be much more than meets the eye. And I wouldn't just sit there and say, well, this is silly, because it's not natural for the CIA to provoke a situation like this unless it's a cover for something.
Right. I think that's what a lot of us are sort of seeing, is that this goes way beyond just being upset that your policies completely got thrown out the window, that your candidate wasn't voted in. Just being upset about the fact that the Americans voted against your policies. This is like, wow, this is sort of irreversible. It'll be interesting to see how Donald Trump and his administration handle this situation. What do you think about Trump's appointments? I believe you're kind of along with us saying, let's give him a chance. Let's see what he's going to do.
Yeah. Well, if he's serious about restoring relations with Russia, and then his appointment to Secretary of State is a very good one, because this is a person from the energy sector who has no interest in bad relations with Russia. He wants to, Exxon wants to be part of the Russian energy business. And so it's a totally different kind of a oligarch than the typical representative of a military security complex. So I think that when Trump announced this appointment, I think he gave the neoconservatives a message that he was serious about good relations. I think appointing the two generals, well, one of the generals, his national security advisor, he's the one who went public and said that it was a willful decision of the Obama regime to send ISIS to Syria. Mm-hmm. And it was against his own recommendation as director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Well, this is a very brave act, and it shows he's willing to take a stand different from the neoconservative propaganda. And the other general is the one who convinced Trump that torture doesn't work and got him off of that kick to get him back toward a constitutional legal basis. Mm-hmm. So I would say on the whole, those appointments are good. And they're all men who are strong and determined, and that's what it takes if there's going to be any change. Mm-hmm. A weak person or a conciliatory person or a person who won't go against the conventional thinking, he can't bring change. So right. I say, let's give him a chance. These appointments, for the reasons I just gave, encourage me.
Right, I agree wholeheartedly, and that's what even Ivanka Trump said. Her father is very good at selecting the right people to be on his team to be a success. What do you make of John Bolton? Of course, he's reportedly being considered for a spot on Trump's administration. He's coming out saying Russia must be made to feel the pain over these cyber attacks.
Well, I don't see how he could possibly be appointed, because he's a complete contradiction to what Trump has said, and he would be at loggerheads with the Secretary of State, assuming Trump can get his appointment confirmed. The Senate has to confirm them. I've never understood the notion that John Bolton could be in the running. I don't know what that could possibly be about. Often, people float names in order to get them into the running. Mm-hmm. So my tendency is to look at Bolton like that. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it could be a way for Trump to have an inside way of knowing what the neocons were saying and thinking.
Right. Exactly. So, you kind of keep your enemies closer, right?
Could be that. But if I was Trump, I wouldn't want anybody like that.
Exactly. Because you're always going to have to be, have eyes in the back of your head. Well, I know we're kind of running out of time here, so I want to, just what do you think Obama's legacy is really going to be? Obviously, what the American people are going to think is a little bit different than what his legacy is going to be, say, inside the Beltway.
Well, I agree with the spokesperson for the Russian foreign minister that Obama is without doubt the worst president ever, and that he was aligned with evil, and he did evil in the world, terrible evil. Mm. And all I can say is when January 20th comes, it is good riddance. Yeah. I hope we never see him again.
Me as well, please. And he just wants to be a sports commentator on ESPN, and please, no, not even that. Just go crawl under your rock. So, I've been kind of saying this as well. So it's interesting to hear you say it, that, you're kind of a little hesitant with just coming right out and saying it, but perhaps preparing the American people for something pretty big to happen with Russia before January 20th. Is that kind of what you're saying, is be on the lookout for them kind of getting us ready for something big?
I think it's the only explanation that makes sense of what we've been witnessing, which is an all-out attack by the director of the CIA. It's a public attack by the director of the CIA against the president-elect. So clearly, this is an effort to discredit Trump or to prevent him from taking office or to prevent him from being able to restore normal relations with Russia. There has to be some explanation of this. Quite clearly, John Brennan will be fired the minute Trump enters the White House. There would have to be a cleansing in the CIA. And so to be so public in the opposition against Trump, it has to have some reason. And I think the only thing that I can really come up with, and of course other people may come up with other reasons, but what I come up with is part of the propaganda they give the American people so that if there is some orchestrated incident, the people will be prepared to believe that it's true.
Right. And you also kind of say, could Trump's foreign policy be controlled by false allegations? Maybe they're even kind of setting this up so then he's going to make his decisions based on that, not pivot toward Russia and continue going with the Obama administration with Saudi Arabia, for instance.
Yes, that could be. I mean, I'm sure that's part of it. You see, already, apparently, Trump has agreed to have the CIA briefing. It doesn't make a lot of sense because if the CIA doesn't have any real evidence, the briefing will just further convince Trump not to trust the agency. But as we've said, there may be more to this than just trying to box Trump in. This may be preparing the ground for some kind of incident. I don't know. But if I was the Russian government, I would be thinking about putting the armed services on some kind of alert. I wouldn't just sit there and say, well, this is Obama being silly. It's
Obama being absolutely dangerous, frankly. Paul Craig Roberts, thank you so much for all this information. We're going to have you back on the show soon. PaulCraigRoberts.org. But man, you're absolutely right. I mean, he's sending the troops in to surround Russia and saying, don't worry, guys, we're just provoking World War III and have a happy Christmas and a great New Year. All right, well, we'll see you soon.
okay.